So 3 things I want to cover today. 1, understanding and identifying mental health in our current space, because I haven't been here for a while and a lot of stuff has gone on. So understanding and identifying mental health in our current space. 2, remaining mindful that symptoms of mental illness aren't uniform. Okay. And then 3, talking about mental health and why it's important. I don't even want to say important, why mental health is imperative for earners. Okay. So let's start with the first one. And I guess after I finish, we could ask questions. So if you guys have any questions when anything comes up, save it, like write it down so that once we open the floor for questions, you'll let me know if it goes under a 1, 2, or 3. Okay. So basically understanding mental health in our current space. So here's the interactive part, because I like interaction. I want everybody to raise your hand if you lived through a pandemic before 2020. I'm going to say it again. Raise your hand if you lived through a pandemic before 2020. Raise your hand if your parents lived through a pandemic before 2020. Raise your hand if your grandparents lived through a pandemic before 2020. So since none of us have ever had to live through this before, or our parents or our grandparents, it's imperative that we understand and embrace this reality as something completely unfamiliar to us and seek and use all the resources available to all of them, every single last one of them. We need to be seeking help in any way, shape, or form that's valid and helpful, exploring things, whether it's yoga, whether it's Reiki, whether it's Pilates, whether it's walking, whether it's running, whether it's journaling, whether it's crocheting. I don't care what it is. Everybody's got things that help them decompress, feel better, and relax and process. And that's what we should be doing. We have to do our best to navigate all the mental challenges and stresses that are coming, because we have never had to deal with this before. I like to remind all my clients, they're like, could you believe that such and such did this? I can't believe this happened. Could you believe this? And I'm like, I absolutely can believe it. But why, Sunny? I said, because we are having normal responses to an abnormal living situation. I want to say that again. We are having normal responses to an abnormal living situation. None of us have ever lived through this before. We was fine. We was diddy bopping through the streets in 2020, doing our thing. And if somebody said, hold up, holy phone selector, sat down. Wait, what happened? It's closed. We closed. You closed. We all closed. Now we have to sit down. We can't move. So many of us who were distracted, many of us who like to link and drink, many of us who like to party, many of us who like to shop, many of us like to go to the gym and exercise, we just had to sit still. Some of us had to sit still with people we didn't even want to sit still with. Some of us had to sit still and be a teacher and to our children, and we were never teachers. And even if we were, who said that we wanted to teach our kids? I know a gazillion parents who be like, I'm off of work today and I'm dropping this kid off to school, and I don't see anything wrong with it. So we've had all of these things happen abruptly with no planning, no warning, no preparation. And then on top of it, we had to start witnessing murders, police brutality, BLM. So now this is across the screen every day. Re-exposure to trauma, re-exposure to trauma, re-exposure to trauma. See, before 2020, we had a lot of exposure to trauma and re-exposure, but some of us showed up in the workplace acting like it didn't happen. I was in a staff meeting like this. So y'all gonna act like Michael Brown didn't just get killed because y'all just talking about enrollment. I'm sitting here thinking Trayvon Martin, right? I'm thinking about all these people, but I'm like, oh, I think you should recommend that you open this class, or there's under enrollment in this section. Now, nobody has to do that, because now everybody's talking about it. So it's on the news. You got all the stores putting BLM signs in the window. No, none of us lived with this before. So when people tell me, for the most part, that they're good, I usually am a little cautious about that, because I don't accept, as we go into this 3rd year, that they haven't had any adjustment issues. I know people are thriving, which is great, but those are the people who have actively made a decision to transform how they live so that they could adjust, so that they could thrive. And usually you can tell that they're doing that through their behaviors. But so many of us have had to adjust to unexpected losses, death loss, income loss, finance loss, housing loss, right? Loss of security. All of this plays with our minds, right? So when I say understanding and identifying mental health in our current space, that is exactly what I mean. prior to 2020, some of us couldn't really recall the first time we heard certain words like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and really understood what it was. Now you can say these words, and many of us know exactly what they, because now we have the language. But prior to 2020, not everyone had the language. Some of us are not having and understanding the need to have self-compassion for ourselves.
That's a good one.
A lot of us don't have self-compassion. And because sometimes our employers don't have compassion, we also don't have compassion for ourselves. And it's really important for us to recognize that we have to have compassion for ourselves and hold space for ourselves.
I will say, not to interject, but something I hear a lot. I don't know if you want me to talk or ask questions.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Come on now,
So yeah, I was gonna say a lot of times I'll hear earners feel like FOMO, and I feel like sometimes when you say self-compassion, that immediately came to my mind, because people are like, oh, I feel like I'm behind, or I missed the class, or I'm even with the trading, sometimes they feel a little lost, but you're where you are and you have to respect your journey, you know what I mean? And learn as you go. So I think like have self-compassion even when you're reaching your goals, when you're looking around at other people that said, oh, I made this amount in the market or whatever. If you made $50 today, that's great. Or if you paper traded today, you checked off another goal on your list, that's great. And we all have our different things we're good at. Like I just got off a call with an earner and she's into real estate and she's like, oh, my portfolio, I need to do this, I need to do that. I'm like, well, you're killing it in real estate. So sometimes it's okay to make your own lane or be comfortable where you are. I mean, obviously learn and grow and do different things, but be compassionate with yourself. You're great at being you, I would say.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect way to describe it. You're great at being you. Everyone's journey is different. And I say all the time, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you try to take on something that you aren't fully prepared to, you don't have the capacity to do it, you may not be as successful at it if you were to wait until you were fully able to execute with a good foundation, step by step. I don't care what it is. Maybe you got through one module, one training, maybe you now by this day, you understand how to do this, right? And then that's it. But I think ultimately it's up to us to decide how we want to interpret that, right? We wouldn't be able to have a fear of missing out unless we actually put that thought in our head and allowed it to stay there, right? So how do I know what I'm missing out on unless I'm focusing on it?
Wow. Good point.
I'm not focusing on that. I don't know what you're supposed to do. All I know is I'm supposed to do this, and stay black and die, which is what my grandmother said, right? I just added a few more things to the list, but ultimately that's what she used to do. I'm not supposed to do anything but stay back and die. I'm supposed to do this, not look. So I'm like, when it comes to FOMO, you can't pour from an empty cup. I don't do things when I feel a certain way. I don't leave my house if I feel a certain way. I will not drive. I'm not going behind the wheel if I don't feel a certain way. Why would I put myself at risk like that? Why would I put other people at risk like that, right? Sometimes the universe say, sit down, Sonny. Like, I hear it. Like you trying to do something. You doing the most, girl. You trying to get outside. Oh, we outside. No, you're not. You're inside today, ma'am. Have a seat.
Right.
Read a book. I remember I was so anxious to get to this party one day. Oh, I gotta get off work. I get off work at 8 o'clock. I'm gonna get dressed and then I'm gonna go to the party because it's after work on Wednesdays. Friend texts me, where you at, Sonny? I said, oh, I'm on my way. I'm about to get to my car. She said, don't leave your house, girl. I said, what happened? She said, girl, they started shooting at the damn place.
Wow.
See, you were supposed to stay home, Sonny. You're supposed to finish your work, go take your bath, your spiritual bath, decompress, drink some water, and sit down. You want to go outside, sit down. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's okay, right? It's okay to not be in the mix, right? You don't want to be mixy. Earners can't be mixy. They don't go together, right? Because people who are earners value their time. People who are earners understand that time means money. So we don't want to spend our time in a wasteful or whimsical way. We want to be more calculated about how we spend our time.